too bad. This will work. How are you?
Which answer would you like?
I don't. That was the other question. Is
Yeah.
which Rick persona am I supposed to bring? Is this like
Oh
the
shit.
optimistic? Is this the realistic? Is it the cynic? I don't like.
I mean, my answer is always going to be dealer's choice, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't
You
know.
could go through all three within one sentence,
Probably.
and just to really show that power move that you've got.
Yeah. Yeah. hmm I'm multifaceted.
What's going on? No, that's not my question.
Not much.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I
the
mean,
world, dumpster fires, things like
dumpster.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, at least we can stay warm.
Yeah. With the cold weather coming in.
I know. I was getting everything set up in
hmm
my office here
hmm
for speaking with you today, and made the mistake of opening Blue Sky just for a moment and scrolling for a little bit, and
Uh-huh.
just like that slow motion click and back away
Yeah.
is what I'm doing in my mind, and I'm actually not at a loss for words. It's just the words that are coming to mind I probably shouldn't use in public.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Totally agree. Yeah. And like one of the things I've been trying to remind myself is like there was a point in my life, in my adult life, where I did not have access to all of the information about all of the things all of the time. And
yeah.
everything, there were not necessarily great people in office doing great things back then either. And so like I always try and remind myself that like a steady diet of doom scrolling is probably not the best for anyone's mental or behavioral health.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is there have always been assholes.
Yes, in office,
Okay.
political office
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
hmm
No, I well recall. I well recall
Yeah.
the moment that I crossed swords metaphorically with somebody in an office I was working in, and that triggered my boss having to do their job for once, which they did not like. And because I was the reason they had to do their job,
hmm
I got in trouble.
You're an
So
instigator. That's what you are.
I am an instigator. Holy fuck, man. And I'm here to tell you, after
uh-huh.
mumble years of doing it,
hmm
nobody likes that.
Yeah. No. Funny enough,
Yeah.
that yeah doesn't always play well.
Yeah. But you all agree that this is dumb, right? Uh-huh. And we're still gonna do it anyway? Mm-hmm.
Are we going to say anything about it? No,
Now,
absolutely not. No,
yeah, and in
just
fact
go
that
with the
you even
flow.
brought it up a little bit, you're out.
Uh-huh.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, guessing is good.
guessing, guessing is good.
Speaking of guessing,
Yes.
how's StartupLand?
It's interesting. Like it's if I had to like categorize it, I would say it feels very Portland, Oregon in particular feels very similar to 2005 ish right now. Like not a lot of obvious activity, not a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
name brand companies or things being built, but there's momentum and there's like people are doing things and stuff is happening. It's just not registering on a public
Right.
visibility scale at this point. So and I wonder, quite frankly, I've largely, as you know, spent most of my life in tech, and I'm like, I don't. Portland's tried at least 3 times while I've been in this community to become a substantial tech
Mm-hmm.
community, and maybe that's just not our role. Like I see far more interesting things happening in the world of consumer products like
Mm-hmm.
food and beverage, apparel, even kind of retail level restaurant stuff and things. And we have, a vast amount of expertise and knowledge around those industries as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is something that we've been considering for a very long time, is just like, are we focused on the wrong things? Are we focused on trying to do something that we may not be capable of doing, rather than leaning into something we could be excellent in doing? So I kind of equate it to, for the longest time, we've been trying to bring our D minus up to a C plus, and maybe we
Mm-hmm.
should look at the B plus and bring it up to an A plus and put the
Right.
energy where we already have momentum. All by way of answering your question, like, more positive than it's been for the past 3 to 4 years. Like, I feel like we had some carryover in the pandemic where we still had some momentum that just kind of continued on.
Yeah.
But it specifically dawned on me the other day that it's like, this is the first time I can recall being here when there isn't really, in the tech community, when there really isn't just like a media darling company, where there isn't, Elemental or a Jive or what have you, Puppet, that
Mm-hmm.
people seem to know about and talk about, and we just don't have that company right now, or a group of
Yeah.
companies right now. So I think that's another thing we're kind of like dealing with right now, is like, who is that next company that represents Portland in the world of technology?
Yeah. The companies you just mentioned, did all of those get M&A'd basically?
Yes. Yeah. All the ones well, Jive went through an IPO. So, I mean, they were acquired by the public. So,
Right. Okay.
but,
Yeah.
uh, but
Yeah.
then I think there was a post IPO, like either private equity or buyouts or acquisition kind of activity. But yeah, like that's the path for most every company around here, is that they wind
Yeah.
up either getting acquired or getting a substantial private equity investment, which is the equivalent of getting acquired, because everything
Yeah.
changes after that.
Yeah. While you were explaining all that, I kept thinking of the word Portland or the term phrase sentence. We'll say sentence. I don't have to make it all highfalutin. I had a sentence in my brain,
Uh-huh.
and the sentence is the following: Portland is a crucible.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering the extent to which, like, this is really a place for experimentation, but maybe not for growth and scale.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that goes for consumer goods as well, with carving out space for
Mm-hmm.
Nike and stuff like that. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's spot on. I think Portland Portland is a place that falls in love with variations on a theme.
mhm,
And that plays very well in the consumer products industry, where you can be like, oh, I like this beer brand better than this beer brand because of the slight permutation, or I like this
right,
donut better than this donut, or whatever. And I think that's also where it's a virtuous cycle of like, people see all the different permutations and they're like, oh, I have a perspective on that. I could create something that's slightly different than anything else out there. And
yeah,
then the community celebrates and champions that. They're like, yeah, go make your own coffee company, even though there are 12 coffee shops on this one block. You should totally do that. And
yeah,
and
yeah,
and we
yeah.
appreciate that as a
Hey, there's
community.
some commercial space for lease here. There's 12 already. It could be 13.
Well, and we support it. I mean, we
Yeah,
support it with our dollars in a really meaningful way, and I don't think that's unique to Portland, but I think it is a strength of
mhm,
Portland, with the willingness for both as a business and as a consumer to experiment. Like, we don't get terribly locked into like, oh, I only go here. This is my only
mhm,
coffee shop. I only go to Starbucks every day or whatever. Like, people people like to experiment and experience different things. And I think that's why so many of us kind of wound up here or remain here was, a lot of the, now I don't take advantage of it, but I mean, a lot of the appeal of the region is, well, you can go hiking, you can go to the beach, you can be at the mountain, you can go to a restaurant, you can do this, you can die. And it, I think I would feel bad if it wasn't there. Right.
Yeah.
Like if I was somewhere that was like 6 hours away from the coast, I would probably be hating it, where I'd be like, I really wish I could go see the ocean. But because it's 90 minutes away, I'm like, oh, it's there. It's there if I need it.
It's probably still there. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Pacific Ocean is still there if I need it.
I would have heard, right?
Somebody would have said something, right? Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, like, pardon me. So you and I have talked before.
A few times here and there.
I'm really nailing sentences today. You and I have talked about what I'm about to bring up before, although it's been a while, of thinking in terms of Portland, as we were just talking about, as a place to experiment, but also as a place that is so, trying not to be an ass about it, but just so hell bent on, I'm doing my thing, you do your thing over there.
Yep.
Individuality-ness, whatever.
Yep.
Look forward to the transcript figuring out that word. That when I start thinking about these things, I start thinking about, like, how might we, I'll put on my designy hat, how might we create space such that there's more of a shared infrastructure rather than a one that has to continuously be cobbled together,
right,
by people such as yourself. You've got that line in your head of, if I've answered this question N times, I need to make a video about it, or I need to make a post about it.
Yeah.
But it, and you have done a lot over the past mumble years.
Yeah.
To create sort of an ethereal, I would say ethereal infrastructure that is there for the finding.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I wonder, like, have there been other attempts to say, all right, let's but consumer goods, food and beverage. I've seen rent-a-kitchen places where people can go and experiment, but I'm wondering if there's more that exists that can be that kind of infrastructure.
No, there's definitely a need for that kind of infrastructure, and I think that industry is more likely to realize and act upon that than maybe some other industries, specifically because in the world, like let's take food and beverage. In the world of food and beverage, there is a well-accepted concept of a part of that ecosystem that's called a co-packer. And it's like when you are through cooking stuff and packaging stuff yourself at a commercial registered kitchen, and yet you're not quite big enough to like invest in your own production line, there is the concept of collaborating with an existing production line to say, will you produce and package or bottle my product? And that has been an obvious pain point enough times that we're starting to see that infrastructure become more available. Like previously it had been, if you were really charming, you could convince somebody to do it for you. Mm-hmm. But we're now starting to see people think about that role as an asset to the community, the same way we think about commercial kitchens. Quite frankly, we're starting to see that kind of co-packing activity. And then there's been some really good, while it's not terribly structured, just some really good knowledge sharing, peer-to-peer kind of thing. Like there are email lists or, Slack channels or whatever, where it's like, hey, I have I need this box, or I need
Mm-hmm.
this shipper, or I need help with packaging, whatever. Like, and people are doing a really good job of answering one another's questions. But to your point, the community, be it government or what have you, has never put significant investment into funding that
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure. So it still does feel kind of cobbled together, but
Yeah.
the opportunities are more obvious, I think.
Where, like, how can you expand on that? Like, where are the opportunities? Like, where do these people collect or gather to
I,
share this information? And
yeah, I mean, I think it's just the by the very nature of it being physical objects and
I see.
things and
Yeah.
stuff that appears on shelves at stores. Like, I think it's just more prevalent and obvious in that regard. Like, and this is not this is not a judgment, but like, I don't think the vast majority of folks thinking about business infrastructure in our community are terribly tech minded. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that, there's a lot of black box activity that happens in the tech world, and I think the consumer products world, we all have to eat. So like,
Yeah.
it's just it's a little more obvious to people where those opportunities might be, and it's more it, hopefully without this sounding, it's more human. It's a more
No, I get it.
human,
Yeah.
like, you're talking to the people who are making the things. It's not, I gave this machine my credit card so that it could charge me every month. It's like, oh, you're the person who
Right.
does the coffee. There's some like communal connection there as well.
Yeah. Plus, we humans have been doing grocery stores for a lot longer than apps.
Right. That's
Yeah.
sass.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Instacart comes along and it's like, why can't we do both?
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, and let's do
hey,
it.
yeah, I don't know. This is the thing that I'm still trying to figure out about this place,
Mhm.
that I haven't really found a way to fully connect with it, which is not Portland's fault. I mean, it is a little bit, let's
Yeah.
face it,
Yeah.
but it's not my fault, or not my fault. It is also my fault. See, I am very good at sentencing today. Um, I am also to blame. There we go. Let's just get it right out there. But I feel like every year, probably around this time, the beginning of a year,
Yeah.
heading into spring, even though whatever's going on outside, PDX TSC, um, the like I'm still trying to figure out like how to connect with this place.
Yeah. You're not
And
alone. I mean, it's like, so much of my, and just for context for folks listening, I've been in Portland for 30 years, and for 18 of those years I have been very focused on community and the dynamics of the way Portland works, and all those kind of things. So like, I probably think about this stuff a lot more than I should, or it's even
yeah,
healthy. But the
yeah, this is actually an intervention.
yeah,
So
thanks. Yeah,
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Let's go. The every I get really objective about Portland in terms of we were joking about like, which persona am I supposed to bring? Like, part of my persona is this very rose-colored glasses. Everything's great. Portland's the best place on earth. Um, part of my persona, especially when it comes to things like pie, is like, this is reality. Like,
yeah.
this is dumb. Stop doing this. And so I tend to see both sides, and I'm a Libra, so I argue with myself all the time. But I tend to see both positive and negative
Mm-hmm.
sides. And the negative that you're describing, the fact that literally every person I talk to, I don't care if they've been here, they were born here 80 years ago, or if they just moved here a month ago, like, everybody's like, I find it really hard to like get connected in the community, or feel where I'm supposed to be in the community.
Yeah.
And I think that's tangible and prevalent, but I think it's the negative of what is actually something very positive about Portland's culture, which we kind of already touched on, but it's the like people just geek out about their particular thing, and they become like so knowledgeable about such a niche thing, or like this small group of people who know about this niche thing, that they just kind of spiral with their own little bubble group, and that's their people, and that's what they need, because there's kind of the mutual admiration society around a particular product, but it makes it really hard to bridge those silos or bubbles, or it makes it hard to break in to those things, especially if they're not opening themselves up to new participants. And I think when you match that with the fact that people totally geek out about things, but are almost like self-conscious a bit, like they don't want to brag that they're geeking out about this thing. They're like, I always refer to it like, aggressive humility. It's like, oh, I just do this thing. It's not that big a deal. And it's like, this is just my thing that I do. And so it just creates these weird cultural dynamics that like, it's really hard to get in. Once you're in, you're in. Like once you found your people, you're good. But if you're a person who needs input from a variety of geeky groups, there is no like bridging capacity there. It's really difficult to disrupt that.
But it's not out and out like click in the sense of
No,
like,
it's
oh, you're that. Oh no.
right.
Well, I guess it is a little bit because humans, but it's not as overt, hopefully, as that. Like, oh, you're into Raspberry Pi. Yeah, we don't deal with that. But it's
right.
But it's like,
I don't think it's done with an intent. I think it's done with naivete, right? Like it's just, it doesn't conceptually, they're like, oh, I found this place. It must be common sense how to find this place and these people. So like it's just, there's not a lot of energy put into that kind of broader collaboration among different. I had a really, like I hadn't thought about this conversation in a while, but kind of coming out of the pandemic, a group of us were just kind of talking about like, what is it that makes Portland? And if you try and think of all those things, all those people geeking out, all those silos and bubbles that aren't crossed over, like what do all of them have in common? And it's like creativity. Like that's really about as close as you can get, is like Portland's primary export is creativity in some form, be it a shoe or a burger or what have you. And there's all this creative stuff going on, but we're not using the power of all that creative stuff, to your point, to like create a cohesive momentum. It's just a bunch of like electrons bouncing around doing things.
Yeah. There's my other metaphor. It's like Portland is a cyclotron, and it spins ideas around, crashes them together, and sees what happens.
Yeah. Well, and when you do wind up in those situations where, like, every once in a while something will happen where you happen to see an environment where it is kind of cross-pollination, different folks, and it's just like amazing stuff comes out of those opportunities. I just don't think, again, back to intention, I don't think we're intentional enough about creating those opportunities. I think we just assume that they will happen magically without putting any effort into it, because we're all in a small metropolitan area that postures as a big town.
Yeah. Accent on the postures. I mean, that's part of the reason why I chose here. I mean, I lived here once before, back in the early 90s, in the 1990, so early 90. And I always felt like Portland, sorry, Portland. Portland was a version of Seattle that I could handle
Yep.
because it wasn't sprawling and huge and made of concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And it had more in common with Anchorage, where Anchorage, is 300,000 people when I left ish, 260 to 300, somewhere in there.
Yep.
But, rivers of wilderness run through the city, and that's the same with Portland. And so I've always felt drawn to this place just from a geographical comfort perspective.
Yep.
Even though I eschew the outdoors. And I know I shouldn't, but I do, and I'll work on that. That's an intervention for another time.
Yeah. That's our follow-up show, is that intervention. Yeah.
But it's like, I'm here. I want to be here. And again, like, I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah.
And to your point of the bubbles or silos that people are in, and then thinking also about how, or while you were explaining that, I was thinking about you. And my interpretation of Rick is like, you are kind of silo-less in a way. And maybe you have we all have our silos, right? But it feels like part of what drives you is the desire to, I don't think be seen as, but to be that connector, collector.
Yeah.
And to make these connections between spheres and silos happen. And so you've been doing that for 18 years or so.
Yep.
What makes you do it for the 19th year?
Well,
too much, too far?
No. Like, I've considered it. I've never come up with a really good, like I always feel really bad when people are like, "What are your hobbies?" And I'm like, "Hobbies? Like,
what's a hobby?
I just do the same thing all the time, and I find it entertaining. So is that a hobby or what?" So part of it is very much just the way I'm wired. Like, it's almost like the best analogy I've come up with, and after I say what I'm going to say, you'll be like, you should be able to come up with better analogies than that. But I was an English major.
Noted.
And so, like, studying literature and plays and all those kind of things, like, this is very much just plot development to me. Like, at the very most basic form, it's, I have encountered you, interesting character. I have this wealth of other interesting characters who are in the menagerie. Like, who do we introduce you to drive the plot forward? And that's like where a lot of it works for me. And especially, like, where I think I get the most enjoyment out of that is when it's a non-obvious connection. Like, that's the thing that inspires me. Like, I hear somebody say something offhandedly, and I'm like, oh, because of that, I would have never thought to introduce you to this person over here. But because of that little piece that you just revealed about yourself, you two are going to be perfect to meet with one another. And that's the part that just kind of keeps me going, is people. Like, people are messy and weird and interesting, and like this gives me an excuse as an introvert to engage with people, and gives me the courage to engage with people, to learn those things. Whereas if I had some other driving factor, like if I was a salesperson or trying to business with people, like, I wouldn't be as motivated to do that as just that people are interesting and, like, complex creatures. And I think so often we are perceived for our most public persona, or people have this parasocial relationship with us because of the persona we put out there. But in reality, people have a lot more surface area and facets that people can connect to. So that's the kind of thing that keeps me going year after year. And then the other part is like stupidity, but not only my own stupidity, but others' stupidity. Like, it's just like, I get frustrated. Like, it's really hard to be a startup founder. It's really hard to do that work. And I think so many people see it as this glamorous, be your own boss kind of world. And I'm just like, everybody who's trying to do that needs help. Like, no one's good at doing that, and no one can do that alone. So that's the other part, is just like, if people are brave enough to try it, I want to make sure they have all the support that they can to even if it's to fail, but at least to give them the best opportunity of exploring the idea or the business they're trying to pursue. And having been a former founder and coming to the realization that I was not motivated by that, I think that's also, it's really easy to tap into that former self and be like, oh, remember when you were doing this the wrong way and you thought you were okay? Like, so yeah, but I mean, if I had to dial it all back and answer it briefly, it's like people are messy and weird and interesting, and that's what keeps me going year after year.
Well, I'm going to disappoint you right now and say that I actually understand and identify with your analogy.
Oh, well, good. Well, maybe I'll keep it. I'll keep it.
No,
then.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think you and I know each other at least well enough to know maybe don't rely on me.
Fair.
Well,
I'll take
Matthew
my weird.
Thought it was good.
I'll take my wins where I can get them. I don't care.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, it's. Yeah, I think this is the thing with, I've tried. I mean, honestly, let's be objective. Some of the things that I've tried to connect with people here in Portland have in of themselves been okay. And I've done it through 2.5-ish times.
Yep.
Same general thing. Like Refresh Portland and stuff like that. And with the exception of like 3 people, I never really got the core of what you were just saying a moment ago is, as I would phrase it, like having a startup, having a business, it's almost never ever meant to be a solo activity.
Right.
Like if you really want it to thrive or even have a chance of making it, it is a team sport. Since we're throwing out mixed metaphors all over the place. And I think one thing I've never done is really sit down and say, are the things that I'm doing, is it me that's keeping the team from forming? Is it the thing I'm doing that's making the team, keeping the team from forming? And maybe I need to stop, again, being objective here.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to stop trying to be the person who's running things and turn around and be the person who supports other people.
Yeah.
And these are things that I've, because of one, ADHD, I already got distracted from the previous sentence. And 2, I think because I live in this room, literally. Well, not literally, but yeah. I mean, it is my house. Whatever. I do. Be quiet. Anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the other...
I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
I hear the subtext of what you're trying to say, which, from my perspective,
Fix me, Rick.
is also that, again, positive, negative. Portland seems to have this vibe of I can do whatever I want and it will be somewhat successful. Like I have the potential of being successful at doing whatever I want because this place is so open to new ideas and permutations and slight iterations that if I have my own unique perspective, then if I have the courage to lean into that opportunity and take that chance, then this is the type of community that will support that, help make that successful. Like that's the perception. And I think to some extent that's true. But I also think Portland has just kind of this current that's impossible to swim against. It has a very strong current about how things actually work, what actually has the potential of being successful around here. And it's non-obvious where that current is or which direction it's flowing for any given community or discipline or what have you. And so I think it's a confusing place because it's the most inherently passive aggressive nexus of activity ever, which is why I love it. Like, I mean, that's part of what I appreciate about it, but it is like, I do find myself constantly getting into arguments with myself about like, again, are we forcing something that can't actually succeed here? Or is there something else that we're not quite doing right that would make that successful here or make that take hold here? I think a really good example that both you and I have experienced is like, you could, in terms of events, you could try and import an event that has been successful hundreds of other places to Portland, and it will fail miserably 9 times out of 10. You could recreate exactly the same event with exactly the same dynamics and just call it something and say it started here, and it will more likely be successful than bringing in existing infrastructure or whatever. Like it's just a weird aspect. It's the kind of ingrained hipster, not built here kind of mentality.
So not built here. Segue. I don't think you're supposed to say segue out loud.
I always do too. I'm like, bad segue. Here we go.
Bad segue. Here we go. Yeah. Hope you're sitting down. Built Oregon. How's that going?
So for folks who aren't familiar with Built is an organization that I co-founded with Mitch Doherty, and it was really his inspiration. His hypothesis is that Oregon is the Silicon Valley of consumer products, that there's more world-class knowledge, experience, expertise here than anywhere else on earth when it comes to consumer products. And so that organization was built to create community with everybody from the Nikes and Tillamook's of the world down through the newest brands at the farmers market. And Mitch and I worked on that and for about 10 years. And then the city finally recognized how impressive and
that was 10 years ago that started?
Yeah.
Oh my
and
God.
Impactful that Mitch was. So they hired him away for Prosper Portland. And so Mitch is like, here, go keep doing things with Built. And I'm like, I'm not that guy. But the executive search is going really well. We're going to bring in a new executive director. I think it's a really good time for the organization to bring somebody new in. And what I've been trying to encourage the board to think about is Mitch and I are startup people. Like we'll try all kinds of different things and a lot of them will appear to work, but might you might not want to look behind the scenes. Like it might be a
Right.
little messy. And so this is a really good time for the organization to simplify and streamline the bulk of the services it delivers
Mhm.
and to really lean in where it's been most impactful. And so that's really where we're looking to this new leadership to be somebody who can help operationalize, simplify, storytell around the work that we
Mhm.
do, and then rethink, like, do we need to be doing as much, or would we have more impact by focusing on a more uh, a minimal set of the things we've done in the past? Like I think our big festival will still survive. That's important for the community. We do an annual festival that people really appreciate, and I would be sad to see that go. But I would. I think the future for Built in terms of programming is a much more refined offering for the community that has a clear through line rather than a bunch of like random, seemingly associated things. And I think part of that, quite frankly, I think part of that may be Built and Pi are actually the same organization, even though we talk about them
Right.
separately. And I think part of that may necessitate pulling Pi out of Built and letting the new executive director really run
Just the
Built.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It came to mind because you were talking about the not built here resistance,
mm-hmm.
and that made me think of I don't know if it's still going, but there was this thing that's similar to Built Oregon called Made in Alaska.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, that sort of manifests itself as a little sticker you get to put on your product that says Made in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a point of pride for a lot of businesses, it's a point of pride for a lot of consumers who buy the products. And I would just, oh, pardon me. The It made me wonder, like, how far Built Oregon would ever want to go with that kind of thing,
Yeah.
where it's not necessarily as, and I don't know the extent to which Made in Alaska was this, but not necessarily that Built Oregon would need to be a governing body by any means,
Right.
but at the same time, also potentially it could be something, and this is just me imagining, not saying what it should do, but it could also be something that tries to provide that infrastructure layer of, here's how to measure, here's how to grow, here's how
Mm-hmm.
to, and there's one place you can go for all of this stuff to sort of leg up and make something that was made in Oregon.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely like we. So in what you're describing in the Made in Alaska, I don't think we venture that close to the actual consumer. Like I think a lot of Built's activity is like way behind the scenes supporting the people making the product. And once I always kind of say we help people build the things that go on shelves. We don't help the companies that have the shelves. So it's like we get you right there, but like once you're in market and kind of going, we're that's not where our expertise is right now.
yeah.
But we do still push the business aspects. Like I think one thing that became exceedingly clear to me is that when I started this work, I assumed CPG was entirely wholly different from kind of tech or venture funded tech or whatever. And they're similar dynamics. They're just different things. Like
Mm-hmm.
in the tech world, it's all about, well, chase venture capital. If you raise a bunch of money, that must mean you're successful or whatever. And the corollary in the CPG world is get on as many shelves at as many stores as possible. And that is some modicum of success. And I'm like, if all you're products are gathering dust on all those shelves, then what are you even doing?
Right.
Like, I'd rather have you selling out every week at a single store than having your product on 50 different shelves, kind of thing. So like, some of those dynamics were directly translatable and made a lot of sense to continue to work with the founders on. But I also think it comes right down to, it's too difficult to bring a product to market and get it into retail and all those kind of things. And there are a lot of misconceptions about how that happens. Shark Tank, thanks for nothing. Like, it's like, there's just a lot of mythology there. And so there's a lot of work that can be done from a built perspective, even before you get anywhere near the consumer themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I'm kind of jumping around in my head a little bit with this stuff, but like, I don't know, maybe it was just before the pandemic started, and there was a place I used to go to quite a bit that the name, Sea Star Bakery. It's on Northeast Killingsworth and 16th, somewhere around there. But they'd be closed on Tuesdays, I think, was there a closed day? And we'd go and we'd forget. We'd show up, try and open the door. Curse you Tuesday. It knows what it did. But I always wondered, like, why is this building not being used right now?
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at like a Japanese restaurant. I'm like, one, Japanese people eat breakfast. Why is this place not open for breakfast?
Yep.
And two, why is this kitchen going unused? I know there are legal things to liability things to deal with and stuff like that. But when I start thinking about, because I understand how, I mean, I don't understand how, but I understand that the system is a very complex one. And you just said a moment ago, like there's a lot to consider. But, you know, I really wonder if we looked at Oregon, at Portland, just because I live here, as, you know, here's the system that we could start to modify some to help us go like gangbusters on something.
Yep.
I often think of these kitchens that are going unused for 12 hours a day sometimes, depending on what the place is.
Right.
Or, you know, event spaces or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or my wife works at Bolt Fabric, and they have a space upstairs, which is just an open space where there's sewing machines and stuff. And it seems like the perfect place for someone to go and work on some apparel things.
Yep.
And it's a relatively recent thing that they've started, so it doesn't get used very often. But I just would like to see like more businesses taking a chance on other businesses.
Yeah.
Even if somehow those businesses might be a competitor in a way. I don't know. I'm kind of in my imagination space right now.
No, I
so
mean,
I'm not really making a lot of sense, but
it makes sense to me. I think it's one of those, like, back to like geeking out on something, like, I know how to run my business. This is what I need to do. And I know I covered this lease and I need to sell more muffins or coffee or beverages. But it just doesn't dawn on folks. It's just like that concept doesn't even enter their brains any more so than it does. Like, my favorite examples of that are banks and churches. Why do we have these massive real estate plays where it's like, that is empty, like all but 3 hours out of a week? Like, what is the point of using it? So but yes,
I just thought of that over the weekend when I went past a church on Killingsworth and it said service on Sunday on its sign, and I'm like, one day a week,
right?
You're open one day a week?
Right. Right. And they generally have massive parking lots and gigantic structures. And, maybe they do some kind of preschool or daycare.
Yeah.
But like beyond that, it's like if the congregation isn't there, the building's empty and unused. And it's just like, yeah, there's definitely, to your point, there's infrastructure without the logistic and operational know-how of how to fully take advantage of that infrastructure. It's only single-use kind of infrastructure that could be used more effectively, for sure. Let's get Mitch to do that in his new Office of Small Business role.
Mitch, if you're listening, one, where's that $20 you owe me? And two, get on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's, I think that without blowing smoke, like that's the kind of thinking we need right now. Yeah. We need to do something, and we need to get creative about it. And to your point about being in Portland in the 90s, it's like we weren't like a very bright, shiny city for very long. And like when I lived here in the 90s, it was like there were still logs floating down the river, and we were tearing ships apart and just throwing them in the Willamette. And like, like I'm always like, go watch Drugstore Cowboy or My Own Private Idaho if you want to see the Portland that I moved to. And if we were able to create something that felt that impressive and meaningful that quickly, like I'm confident we can get there again, but we need to be creative about it. We need to make like ridiculous decisions, and by ridiculous I don't mean silly or wrong. I just mean decisions that people might not immediately understand and may generate ridicule from folks, but like if there's a long-term obvious payoff, then we need to start doing that kind of stuff. I love the impact of the new PDX roof. Like I have never seen the community.
What is that?
So PDX, the Portland Airport,
just
put in this new wooden roof that's like acres and acres of reclaimed wood from within 200 miles or whatever. And there's like a forest in there now. They just redid the whole airport. And that's probably the first time I know of historical times when Portland has been super proud about things like that. But that's the first time in a long time where I've seen Portland really step up and be proud of something that's been done. And it's like, did you really need to do that?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
But did it have a meaningful impact? Absolutely. And is that the first thing in the last 5 years that I've seen generate positive news about Portland? Yup. And it's an amazing structure, but
it's beautiful in there.
It's the roof of an airport, but we did it really, really well. So more thinking like that, like like I always refer to like Tom McCall Waterfront Park, or like, which was a freeway, or like the parking garage that was Pioneer Courthouse Square, like doing things like that the city can take pride in and really champion. Like, I think we need more of those kind of things. And to get back to where we were, it's like, it doesn't just need to be physical manifestations. Like if we could come up with ways of doing things that could be a different kind of creativity that we export elsewhere in the world, or that other people find helpful and impressive, I think that's equally valuable.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to segue again. It's time for 7 plus or minus 2 questions.
Okay, cool. I'm glad my throat has held up. I've had that lingering cough, so I'm sipping tea.
I feel a slight verklempt-ness, which I am in denial about.
Yeah.
But
I don't feel bad. I just sound bad. So.
Okay. Oh, you sound fine. It's okay.
Cool.
Yeah. You need that affirmation. Especially from me. Like, you sound like shit, Rick. All right. So Yeah, I'll ask the question this way. Normally,
Mm-hmm.
normally,
Mm-hmm.
typically, previously, I have asked people, what's one thing you would change about your profession? I don't know what your profession is.
Neither do I really.
I don't really know what mine is anymore either. Um, so I'll be more grandiose, even,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
actually showing that I have faith in you to
Uh,
be grandiose with me. What's one thing you'd change about Portland?
uh, this is timely because this is my
See how I
new
set you up there?
this is my
Yeah.
new soapbox is uh, I don't I don't want to change the aggressive humility per se. Like I find it charming and I find it really an important part of our culture. However, the one thing I would like to change about Portland is more people in Portland stepping up to own the narrative about Portland. I think for so long we have just kind of abdicated that responsibility to Fred and Carrie to tell funny stories about our town, or we've, let the
Mm.
New York Times food section write up what's happening here. Like, I think we need to swallow. I guess if you swallow your pride, what do? Vomit up your humility? Anyway, so we need to we need to suppress a little bit of that humility
Uh,
and really be proud and drive the narrative about what's happening here, because if we don't, then we wind up with what we've had for the last 5 years or so, which is if we don't own the narrative, then everybody else does, and they can tell whatever stories about Portland or Oregon that they want to. So own the narrative is what Portland needs to do, and that's how it needs to change.
okay. All right. Next question. What do you wish people cared more about?
uh, I wish people cared more about reality. Like, there's on all various ends of the spectrum, like the reality of where we are as a nation, the reality
Mm.
of like building businesses, the reality of way too many of our neighbors living on the streets of Portland unsheltered. I would really love to see people embrace reality more regularly and just like be as part of that reality, imbued with empathy. Like I think there's some
Mm-hmm.
combination there that would behoove each and every one of us, myself included, to be far more realistic and empathetic with others.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't figured out the best way to say this line yet, but there's something about, I think people are hesitant to offer empathy to other people because, again, I haven't figured out a great way to say this, but
Mm-hmm.
because they don't like what those other people are doing. I'll say that just like
Yep.
as simplistically as possible.
Yep.
And I think that there's a hesitancy to offer empathy to people because they feel like that person needs to be held accountable for their actions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to jump on the bandwagon a little bit and say bandwagon soapbox. Um, and
Bandwagons move, so boxes are
that's
stationary.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have to stay on the move so they don't find me. It's a bandwagon that sells soap. There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah. Um, that I feel like, here's my lofty phrase, like we can't have justice in this world without empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
justice, empathy like justice, like if not everyone has it, then nobody has it kind
Right.
of
Right.
perspective. And I think that that's part of what keeps people from reaching out, even metaphorically, through empathy, having empathy for other people, because they're like, but I don't like what they're doing. It's like, well, you can have empathy for how they got there
Right.
and still not like what they're doing.
Yeah.
We can still hold people accountable, and that should be, in my mind, a neutral term. Like, I can hold you accountable for being awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Of course.
It's not usually how people phrase that, but it's so anyway. I'm with you on that. Is the long-winded way of saying that.
Well, and I think whether it's back like lizard brain level humanity stuff, like I've never understood why empathy has been seen as a weakness. Like you have to be a much stronger person to be empathetic than you do to be angry at somebody.
Correct. Yes, we are better than everyone else.
That's where I was trying to get to. I'm glad.
Oh wait, no, that goes against the humility part. Wait a second.
Whoops.
I'm sorry.
Wait,
right.
Whoa.
Yeah. Whew.
Edit,
too far there, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cut
two.
that.
Yeah.
I'm terrible. There we go.
Perfect.
All right. Next question. What's the best meal you've ever had?
I'm a huge, I like all kinds of food. The best, honestly, it probably goes back to when I was a kid, and it wasn't necessarily even what one would call a meal, but for a little too much history about me, I was a wrestler all through junior high and high school, and I cut weight like pretty severely. Mm-hmm. So after the wrestling season every year, I would eat an entire chocolate peanut butter cream pie from a local pie shop and have a foot-long pizza sub, which was a toasted sub of cheese and pepperoni. And for the 4 or 5 years I had that after wrestling, that was always the best possible meal that I could have.
An earned meal.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You gotta get those pounds back on somehow.
Right. Yeah. Now on to the big questions.
Okay. I thought those were the big questions.
Oh no. It gets worse. What do you wish you'd done differently?
I think I wasted a lot of time being a perfectionist from my perspective, when now with the benefit of hindsight, I can see that even that obsessive perfectionism was not without flaw. I'll go back and read a piece that I edited 25 times and it's like, oh, there's a typo in the first paragraph. It's like I was just far too focused on everything being perfect, and I think it made me both caustic, toxic to work with at times, but also I think wasted a lot of time where the vast majority of the time, 80% of the way there is good enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. And so I wish I had learned that younger, that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's more it's kind of like what everybody's used this analogy 1,000 ways, but it's the get people to take one perfect photo or get people to take as many photos as they can in the or right. Pots or glass blowing or whatever creative format you want to use. I wish I'd worked more on the repetition than the singular perfection.
That is definitely not something I identify with. Nope. Not at all.
Yeah. It was nice. It was really a great time in my life when I knew everything about everything and I was absolutely right about everything. Those were very heady times.
Yeah. Yeah. In your head. Yeah, I hear you. Oh, yeah. All right. So next one. If you stopped doing all the things you're doing now, what would you go off and do?
Ooh.
What's the big pivot?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, like, I mean, my immediate response is, "Oh, I'd write more," but
Mm-hmm.
like, our modern day lives, we write so much, even if you're not focused on writing things, so that doesn't feel like enough pivot away. I don't know what I'd do. Like, I don't have anything where I'm like aspirationally like, oh, I really wish I'd do that thing.
Yeah.
Maybe photography. Like, I've always been like hobbyist photographer. I really enjoy it. I hate
Mm-hmm.
turning hobbies into actual work though, but
Yeah.
maybe something like
That's a
that.
good point.
I know you as the auteur who has created one of my avatars I use on a regular basis as a
Oh,
photographer.
if only I had. I mean, that is a good shot of you. I wish I had used like a proper camera though, so that because every once in a while I'll see it used in
Mm-hmm.
something and it's of a size where it's like, oh, that's blurry.
Yeah, a little blurry. Yeah,
Yeah, but when
yeah,
it's small and avatar style, it's like, hey,
yeah,
that's a good shot.
yeah. Everybody, like, when there was the AI image generator that came out that's like, we'll turn your photo into a Greek bust or Roman bust. I was like, I already have it.
Oh,
It's
I
good.
got it.
I got it
Yeah,
done.
I've lived that life.
uh,
Well, anyway, all right. So imagine it's a year from now.
mhm.
What do you hope to not be carrying anymore?
Hmm. Built.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I want to get rid of built as quickly as I can. Like, I feel like I'm weighing it down. So it's both a weight and I'm weighing it down. It's like
Yeah.
perpetual motion machine. Uh, yeah, that's the one. That's the one thing that's
Mm-hmm.
most top of mind for me right now because it has so much potential, and I feel like I'm not. It's fine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing going wrong. It's just like I'm not doing it justice, and it feels like I'm carrying it right now.
Do you still imagine staying on as
Yeah,
advisory
yeah,
connected? Okay.
yeah, but just
Yeah.
not in a purely advisorial way, not in a like this is what we should do, but like this is
Right.
my opinion.
Right. If
Use
you're
it
going
or
to do
don't.
that, here's what you
Yeah,
might want to look out for, kind of
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. I definitely still want to be involved. I still believe in the mission and the organization. It's just like it needs some fresh thought, and
Mm-hmm.
I would like to give people the opportunity to do that thinking.
Cool. All right.
I did it!
You did it. You made it to the end.
Yay! Nice,
And
love it.
yeah, let's stop talking.